Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the live Health Heal Thrive podcast. You're going to love my guest today. Margaret's already here and very much looking forward to listening to you, Alison. I know a few
Oh.
members of the Thrive Time group said they've listened to a few of your podcasts, which is,
Ah,
yes, very nice.
thank you.
Um, Before we get into meeting you and obviously hearing all about your story and purpose and passion,
Hmm.
I just wanted to put a little bit of context around the podcasts now being live. So, my interview style is very much like Alice and I are having a coffee, and you guys can watch live and be with us. I
Mm-hmm.
really want you to be a part of it. So, if you have a question for Alison, please put it in the comments, and I'll definitely make sure I send it to her during the conversation. Obviously, the benefit of being here live, being in my group, or being connected to Alison in some way means that you do get to ask the questions. So if you're watching this on the recording and you want to be a part of the live conversations, have a look at the link below and join my Thrive Time group, which is how I actually met Alison. So
Mm.
Alison, welcome to Health Heal Thrive. It's such an honor to really meet you and chat with you, and I really can't wait to hear.
I'm so excited. Thank you
Well,
for having me.
well, it's such a pleasure. So
Mm.
before I ask you my questions, share with everyone a little bit
Sure.
about you. Who's Alison? What does
Who
Alison do?
am I? Oh my goodness, who am I? It's such a big question.
It is.
Um, so I guess what I do and the roles I play. So I'm a mum and a mum of 5 kids. One's married, so I say I've got six,
Yes.
four boys and one girl, and then of course now I've got 2 daughters. So I can't wait to have more daughters in our family down the track. I've got a husband who is in the mining world, so he's a FIFO husband in and out of Townsville. We live in Townsville,
Okay.
so the FIFO has been probably the last 8 years when we moved to Townsville. We moved from Mount Isa. And so that was a very new experience for us navigating the FIFO shift worker life. I'm a teacher, trained teacher, although I've been getting out of that journey, although I'll never escape teaching. I love teaching. That's probably the core of who I am. But not sort of teaching in traditional schools. And when I realized that journey was up, I started to go, oh, where am I going in life? And I found the coaching space, studied in Neurocoaching Australia, and found my passion to partner with people and do life with people in the coaching, in the coaching space.
Well, there's a few things I have to draw similarities to. I knew there was a reason that we've connected. There's always a reason why you connect with people. So I too have
Yeah.
4 boys and 1 girl. And whenever I hear someone who has 5 kids, my mind disassociates with myself. And I'm like, oh my God, how have you got 5 kids?
Yeah, hang on a second.
Isn't
Yeah,
that funny? Isn't
it
that
is
funny? It's
weird.
always
Mm.
been, it doesn't feel like, that.
Mm.
Was that always the plan for you for 5 kids or no? Never
No.
is, right?
No, we were thinking 3. We were
Yeah.
finishing our family at 3, but then there was other 2 children to come to the world, and look, wouldn't change it for the world. They've completed our family. Mm.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. And
Yeah.
the teaching as well. So that was my first thing.
Yeah,
I did
right.
got the qualifications, but never actually taught. But I think there's so many
Mm.
similarities between teaching and coaching. I mean,
Mm.
you have to be really driven from a deep purpose to obviously want to connect with people. You have to really like
Yeah.
people, and that was one of the
Mm.
things I certainly got from when I was reading the information about you. So talk to us a little bit about what did that journey look like into coaching, like what were the things or pivotal moments that really took you into the coaching world.
Mm. So I remember vividly being in a space of our family was in a quite a tricky season as families come in and out of. And I was sort of realizing that full time teaching was very difficult for me to maintain. And I was a careers advisor at the time. So teaching maths and English and careers. Um, And I had this a fellow teacher put a note on my desk. So I was already starting to think there's more to my journey than being a full-time teacher. Anyway, I was sitting in my space at my desk. I'd come into the office and I saw this note on my desk, and it said something along the lines of, Al, when kids come into your office, they are stooped low with the weight of the world. But when they walk out, because I was dealing with grade 10, 11, 12 students, when they walk out of your space, they're standing tall with a smile. And it was in that moment when I read that and I thought, that's what I love about my space. I love supporting, showing young people or people in general that there is hope for something more, that they don't need to feel stuck or burdened by the world. Sure, we go through hard things, but there's always a hope and a future. And so when I realized that was my passion and that's the part of teaching I loved, and definitely not the curriculum, that started to put me on a trajectory of, okay, what can that space look like in the greater scheme of life outside of school? And I remembered that I had been on a coaching journey when we moved to Townsville, and the family was kind of struggling with that transition. I'd been on the receiving end of coaching. And so I remembered this. So I reached out, had coffee with my coach friend who I hadn't really seen for quite some time. And she's like, Al, have you thought of coaching? So that's kind of the transition in that space.
Wow, what a beautiful note. What?
Oh, life-changing note. And she would have had no idea. She knows now, I have told her, but she would have had no idea how much I needed that note. A, because we all need encouraging, but B, because it really helped me to identify what I loved about my current job and my career, but identify the parts I didn't want and how to find my way forward.
So
Yeah.
what is it that you did? Like when those kids came into you,
Hmm.
what did you show them? How did you help them unburden themselves from the weight of the world on their shoulders?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think provided a space, like a spot where they could just share what they were going through, and they just knew that I was listening and that I cared. They just knew that I cared and that I wasn't about to try and solve their problems, and I would tell them that at the get-go, but just talking through, I realized the power in that, and having a non-judgment and also sharing with the kids some of my stories to realize that they weren't alone in those feelings, and then point them towards their future. Like often they would come in and it was just, the end of the world for them. And we'd even go there for a minute. Okay, well, worst case scenario, what could this look like? And then when they realized and went down the worst case scenario and realized, oh, it's actually not that bad, there's still a way through. Um, that was very helpful for them to see that. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Um, just a comment, sorry, any chance of increasing your mic volume a bit? It's to be similar to Alison's. Me. Oh, I'm got a
Oh,
low. Oh,
sorry,
sorry. No,
I'm
it's not
loud,
you,
am I?
darling. No, it's I think it's regulated. I can try. Is that better? Margaret, let me know if that's better. I don't know if I can adjust the mic on this because I tried to set up my special little thing, microphone like you've got. But I'm
Yep.
at my standing desk and it's too low and it just doesn't pick up
Oh,
the sound. So I've got to use these things. Let me know, Margaret, if that's better, please. I'll talk a little bit louder. Anyway, it's not about me anyway. As long as you can hear Alison. But I was going to
let's
say on
see.
that, really all the things you've said there are the essence of coaching.
Mm,
Creating a space
mm,
for people to be who they are, be safe, not feel that not feel judged, not feel that, they need someone to solve their problems, to fix them, just to be, when we, you know, and be listened to, like
yeah.
I talk about the listening stuff a lot when I teach other coaches around, the essential coaching skills. Number one is to be able to listen. And
Yeah.
listening's not just not talking. It's really listening beyond the words they say, because often the words that come out are kind of not really,
What's going on? Mm,
what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you've been with someone like they would have felt with you, when you've been with someone that's listened, it's an experience that's very hard to, to sort of explain, but you never kind of forget it. And I think, if you're in a position where you can touch people's lives, like young kids' lives like that, in that, that age group, which is so tough and
Yeah.
just getting tougher.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. One of the things I'd like to know from you is, how did that manifest for you in terms of, is that kind of the person you've always been, or has there been sort of some story or some things you've had to go through to really get to that place where you can sit with another human being and hold a really safe and open space for them?
I think, like, I look at myself growing up, I do see it being, there's part of it is a natural. I see it in my dad, for example. So I know that that's part of who I am today, is also part of my dad providing that space for others. So that is something I've learned and naturally do have. But I remember, like, I have read, what's his name? Mark Goulston's book, Just Listen. Have you
Don't
heard
know
of that?
that book.
So
No.
it's a incredible book, and I read it really as a tool of looking through the lens of, how do I really hear my kids? Because life is busy. And I read this book and I learnt lots of tools. And then I went on this experience of learning, who is this Mark Goulston who wrote this book? Kind of like how I found you. Oh, who is this Tracy? Like, and you start to follow the little crumbs everywhere and work it all out. And he, as an author, and he's a well-known author, he's an ex-FBI negotiator. So he brings to the table, and I think he's a doctor in psychiatry. Anyways, he has this method of helping young people or anybody in suicide, right? So, and his method is called surgical empathy. And he talks about getting alongside people and really being in that space. And it's something that I became very aware of, that everybody needs to be heard. Everybody needs to feel kind of safe and, yeah, really just heard. And when we're heard as humans, it then gives us room and the space and the courage to then, to make better decisions for our life, I suppose. And so I just realized the power of hearing people and took that on. But yeah, so definitely learnt, but I think I've always enjoyed listening, even though it sounds like I like talking, because I do like talking. I actually really do enjoy getting alongside and being quiet and listening to people. Yeah.
Apparently, when I hold it like this, it's better. So I'm going to hold it up when I speak.
I
Because
love
it's
this. Just
annoying.
work it out as we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that's life, really, isn't it?
It's
Um,
fabulous.
so I love that. I'm definitely going to get that book, because I'm about to
Mm,
step into doing some coaching with doctors, and I think, I think it will be. I mean, I really want them to take just a couple of really key things away, and something like
mm,
that. Just, this, I know they're so conditioned, and just, it's about diagnosing. So they're, it's, their mind is constantly trying to diagnose what's going on in the short 10 to 15 minutes they've got. But I
mm,
think there is, even in that space, there's opportunity to be alongside them and to really, drop into listening, even if it's just for a
mm.
small part of it. And it is very, very powerful. So you mentioned you went down that path and found that book because you wanted to listen to your kids better. So I talk about parenting being just obviously the hardest job we have got. And, I think as a society, we
Yeah.
do underestimate it, but it is
Mm,
the hardest, most beautiful, brilliant, everything,
mm.
right? My kids have
100%.
taught me, yeah, you know, more than anything.
Mm,
So can we have a conversation about,
mm.
you parenting your kids, the challenges around that? Did the book help? What are some of the big takeaways, I guess? First of
Mm.
all, what's the spectrum? How old are your kids? You said you've got one who's
Mm.
married.
Yeah, so, and that's our second eldest. So our eldest is 24. There's 9 years between the eldest and the youngest, and our youngest just turned 15. So
Oh,
2 boys, The second one's married. The eldest is in Brisbane. The second eldest is in Sydney. His wife is studying teaching. My daughter's just recently moved back home, so I'm super pumped to have her back under our roof and connecting with her. And then we've got two younger boys. One's finishing year 12 this year, and then one finishes, he's in grade 9. So, yeah.
Wow. Yep, full on. So tell me how all your life lessons, I guess, and the insights you've had in your work have helped you as a mum.
I kind of wish I'd done some of this work
Yep.
a long time ago.
But I figured out we're not meant to.
No, it's
People
true.
are like, oh, I've got to, people say you got to heal before you have kids. So you got to have this, and I'm like, you know what? Nah. I just think you've got to drop yourself into it and show up
Yeah.
and know that you're going to be doing the best you can, but I'll always keep searching for more understanding. But yeah, sorry.
Always. Oh my goodness. What was your question again? I got caught up on what you were saying.
About the just your lessons in terms of what you've learned in your work around parenting, and what have been some of the biggest challenges for you, really?
Yeah. Wow, where to start? So I would say one of the biggest things that I've come to realize is that love really wins. Love wins at the end. And I get emotional when I say that. And I haven't shared a lot on our own podcast because we're still in the middle of a journey with our eldest son. So, our eldest son at the age of 16, I feel like reflecting back, he's always had probably low sort of self esteem, looking to where he fits in. Even though we kind of recognized that and did all that we could do. But at age 16, we started to have concerns about some of the friends he had and where that could lead him. And so we've been on this really big journey of substance use and abuse since not much older than 16 until now he's 24. And it's been a really long and hard journey. But what I've learned, so in the bad, but also in the good, is that love, it wins. And that doesn't mean that things are going to be right or good or easy or, I don't know, lack of language at the moment. But it just means that we have a relationship that when things are tough, he picks up his phone and he has that conversation with us. And as parents, it's very difficult on the receiving end, but we're part of his world and we're part of that journey with him and for him. And there's been times where we've had to loan him our strength and our hope. But the only reason why we can do that for him is because we've loved him unconditionally. And I'm telling you now, that has been hard. It's hard to love unconditionally when young people or when anyone in your world is blatantly going against all you've showed and taught, and you can see where it's going to go. But I think allowing our people to somewhat do their journey, which is so hard because then you start to get into, am I enabling? Look, this could be a really big conversation. But here's what I do know. Love wins. We have a fabulous relationship with our son through the good times and the hard times. The other thing that I think we've really learned as a family is to keep fun in the family. Like, have fun with our kids, with my husband, because otherwise in these really tough moments and these tough seasons, and you start to go, where did I go wrong? Was it this, that, and the other? And you start to question things could go really pear-shaped and your family can fall apart. So being really intentional. So yeah, the lessons I've learned in parenting is love wins. So when the going gets tough, just remember love wins. But keep fun in there, keep being intentional, keep having fun. Yeah.
I can imagine that actually when things are really tough and you're full on in the pit, for want of a better word, and you're seeing your child struggle, children, I mean, addiction or not, all kids struggle, with
At some
various things
point.
at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that urge to jump in with them, we need to jump in with them, but we can't save them.
Can't do it.
No, we can't do it. And but then you know, when it's in those times to bring in fun, like that actually takes a lot of courage, I think, to
Yeah.
do that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a conscious decision because it's not really what will be front of mind.
Mm-mm.
But, you know, so how did that look, and how did that, you know, that
Mm,
must have helped your other kids, because
mm,
we know it's not the child that's the only one that is affected.
No,
You know.
that's exactly right. So, our journey has significantly impacted everybody. And there was a season, probably it, maybe coming up for 5 years ago. It blows my mind how fast time goes. But we were renting a home, and due to houses that we had still out in Mount Isa that, weren't the best investment, we sort of thought we're never going to be able to buy our own home again. So we were in this season of very tricky time with our son, thinking we're in this rental, starting to really sort of implode on ourselves and feeling like nothing's working. We were down on ourselves, and that could easily play out within the marriage as well. But we decided, and we didn't have any coaching experience at the time, but we just decided, you know what? We're going to start dreaming for our family. What do we want? We want to own our own home in Townsville. And so we decided on weekends to go out and look at homes, do open homes. Financially, it was a silly idea. We didn't have money, it was tied up. And we didn't really have a passion to do it because we were pretty heartbroken at that point. But we decided we're going to do that. And we drag along whichever kids wanted to come, sometimes none. So it was a fun thing for hubby and I. But sometimes the kids would come, and, you go into a home and you're bagsing whose room's who and what you do by the swimming pool, and you start to plan out your future. And we did that for about 6 months. And that just brought this whole spark in all of us. And interestingly enough, allowed us to dream. We dared to dream. We found a house that was up for auction, and we ended up buying a home that on paper didn't look like it was going to be possible. So that dreaming brought us together, but it actually accomplished a greater goal that we kind of knew we wanted but didn't think was possible. So that's
Gosh,
the
love
intentional
it.
fun that we did for a little while there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. I think as kids, young kids, we have such a natural, it's just naturally,
Yes.
you know, in us. And I don't think we lose it. I just think we kind of condition ourselves into the realistic world
Uh-huh.
of, you know, it's not supposed to be fun. And I think, you know,
Yeah.
we can tap into that creativity
Mm.
and, you know, and I think we must if we,
Mm.
for families, because you're right, you
Mm.
know, it's, you know, just even things like as the kids grow up, I was thinking about, I'm doing a lot of stuff on quantum hormones at the moment, and
Mm.
oxytocin, you know, is the
Yeah.
kind of the king. I mean, if that's kind of not working properly, well, everything is really, really difficult. But don't we,
Mm.
you know, we cuddle our kids, you know, and then they get to a certain age and we forget that they need cuddling and they need sitting and reading to, or just singing or being together, you know,
Mm.
and I don't know, I'll sidetrack me there, but I want to bring it back to your love wins, because I can totally resonate with that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest learnings I've had as a mom too, because I came into it thinking that it was my job to really
Mm.
guide, to tell them what the path should look like. And I really realized, you know, but with my daughter in particular, she's my number two, but she really said, hey, no, mom, sorry, it's my path. And
Yeah.
I want to be, I want you there.
Mm.
But, you know, I had to really see that all my job was to love them. And the fact that your son will ring
Mm.
you and you have that
Mm.
relationship, it is everything, because he has an
Mm.
illness and we don't know what the
Mm.
time frame is of the healing for that,
Mm.
because it's, as you know,
I'm
and we all,
prayerful it's sooner rather than
yeah,
later,
and
and we
we all
certainly
are.
have seen evidence towards that.
That's
Um,
great.
but you take 10 steps forward and jump back what feels like 50. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah,
I
you
know
don't know.
it, yeah, and it would rip your heart out every time. And I'm sure you sort of know that that is unfortunately the
Mm.
journey. And
Yeah.
as long as, you know, yeah, and I know the enabling thing. My parents used to, with my brother, you know, my parents used to eat themselves up in knots because
Yeah.
everyone's saying, you can't enable, but I don't think loving is enabling, and how you show your
Right.
love is probably something that you and your husband you get to decide, and that's going to
Mm,
be very individual and very circumstantial. But love is just everything as a parent, and
yeah.
love can't come with a bag full of conditions. But oh, how we love to bring a bag full of conditions with us.
Yeah. I think that's part of being human, right?
Yeah.
Mm,
Absolutely,
mm,
absolutely. So I did have a listen to a few of your episodes on your podcast. So you have a podcast called Brave, Strong and Fulfilled, and I know,
mhm.
yeah, some of my group have enjoyed some of
Oh,
those.
that's lovely. Thank you.
Isn't that lovely? And I
Mm,
also want to talk about your book, which I'm going to find, but it's called Life Lessons with Theodore, and Theodore is
mm,
your dog. So
mhm.
perhaps let's jump into the book. Tell
Sure.
us about it. How did it
Yeah.
birth, and what's it about?
Love that. Okay, so I love talking about Theodore. So as a little girl, I've just loved Saint Bernard dogs. Never thought I'd ever own one. Didn't even dare to dream that I'd have one. However, it turned out that we had a beautiful Theodore, Saint Bernard. The week we were getting him, we found out that he had a heart condition. So we had an option right there and then to say to our breeders, no, we're not going to pay for him and have him. Or what we ended up saying was, you know what, Theodore needs a family. Absolutely, he's going to be ours, which is obviously what we did. So we had Theodore, and again, that just sparked so much fun and life and joy for our family. And but we also knew that because he had a heart condition and because he's a giant dog, we didn't know what his life would look like. And so, anyway, we all was smooth sailing. We had this character of a dog who I would go walking with, and whether he did something or didn't do something, it would sort of speak a bit of a metaphor about life to me. So in my phone, I would go walking, and then, he would stop and not move. And then I'd have this little story come to mind. So I just made notes in my phone thinking, these are helpful little metaphors about life that maybe I'll use with my clients at some point. They might be good social media posts. So
Hmm.
that was my thinking. Um, Long story short, we went for our awesome Wednesday morning driving my husband to the airport. We live around the corner from the airport. Theodore thinks it's the best thing of his day to go for a drive to the airport. And then I decided, no, let's go watch the sunrise, as you would like to do, Tracy.
Yay!
And we went for a walk on the beach because I live just around the corner from the beach. So we were doing that, but that morning was a very different morning. So that morning we were walking along the beach, and he'd said hello to a fellow dog and a family, and they'd left. And then I turned around to call Theodore, and Theodore was on the floor on the sand. And my Theodore had passed away from a heart attack there and then. And so I know you didn't know this is where the story was going, Tracy. So that was a incredibly heart wrenching because it was so out of the blue and so difficult, but also created a very, very big problem for me. I just put my husband on a plane, and it's dark at the beach, and I have a nearly 70-kilo dog along the beach to try and deal with. So the story is I had beautiful, beautiful people in the community, and it's in the book, come and help me. And it was just, I just felt so incredibly touched. So what was a very difficult day also had a lot of beauty in it. And so that day was really magical in that sense. Touched my heart, but I also had a lot of grieving. I had to come home and tell the children who were still in bed, all that, and had to work out anyway, won't go into all of that. But a couple of days after that, we sat and cried, and I sat on the lounge and was pretty sad because it was just so sad and I was so shocked. But I remembered all of these little stories that I had in my phone. I thought, I'm just going to write them out. So on a piece of scrap paper, an old scrapbook, I just wrote everything out, remembered everything that was. And at the end, I looked at all of them, and there was kind of 12 little stories. And I thought, these are good stories. I'm going to type them up. The kids in the family would love this. I'm going to just type it all up. So I typed it up and I read back the stories, and I was thinking, I think these stories have there's something to these stories that maybe it's not just for my family, but I didn't dare think maybe it'll be a book. I just thought, these are good little life lessons. But there was that little niggling feeling, and so I sent them to my mum and to my husband. So both people, my mum worked in a library, loves kids' books, loves stories, is a big reader. But mum will also be real. She's not going to send me, for example, on Australian Idol and say I can sing if I can't sing. She's not that mum.
Love it.
So I was like, I'll send it to mum. And my husband also, he's a realist, and he's an engineer. So he's just like sees life. So I thought those two people, and I sent it to him, and my mum was like, "Oh my goodness, Al, these are so beautiful. You're so wise," which I was like, "Of course I am." No, it was such a beautiful thing for my mum to say to me.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
my husband's like, "These are really good." So then I started to dare to think, could this be something? And that's what began the journey towards a book.
Oh
So, and
gosh.
that's why the 12 steps comes in. So it's called Life Lessons with Theodore, a 12-step reflective journey towards embracing life. I'd have had one person say, 12 steps, have you done the 12-step program?
Well, that
That
did
didn't
come
occur to
in.
me. Didn't occur to me. I was like, oh, do I need to change that title? But I
No.
wanted it to be a 12, like it's just simple. There were 12 little lessons that
Yeah.
I felt that if we were to embrace those, our life would be just so much more, I don't know, positive and life giving and inspirational. So that's where that all came from.
Can you share one with us?
I don't have my book in front of me. Isn't that terrible?
Oh no, off the top of your head, just one that you can reflect on that.
Oh, what is one? So there was one day, my daughter Abby had come home and had a really tough day, and she was crying. And Theodore loved to sleep because of his heart condition. He spent a lot of his time sleeping, and that's fine. But he heard Abby come home and he jumped up with excitement. And then he's just noticed Abby was sad. And Abby went into her room, and he wasn't allowed in Abby's room because he's hairy and slobbery, and she doesn't like hair and slobber, strangely enough. And so he just lay down right at her door and didn't move. And what that showed me in watching that, because he never would lie at Abby's door because he wanted to be in your space. He wanted to be up in your grill and sharing the love. But he just lay there. And so the sort of take home from that was a reminder that it's just being with someone, letting someone know you're there. Theodore didn't change Abby's story. He didn't change her circumstance that day. He didn't help in any way, except he showed her that he was there. And I know he's a dog, and I know, but it was such a reminder to me that connection and showing people that we are there for them, even when we can't do anything about it. There is so much power and comfort in that space. And so that's one of the little lessons. Obviously the
Oh, they're
story goes on
beautiful.
longer, and at the end of each story there's like questions for you to sort of reflect on what that looks like in your world, and moving forward, is there something you can change or do moving forward?
I'm so going to get it. Can't wait. I know there'll be many that are going to get it as well. It
Oh,
just
that's
sounds,
wonderful.
I mean, they're kind of, I didn't write my books on, on that, but very similar. Again, so many
Mm,
similarities, just
yeah, it's
allowing things to
interesting.
come. Well, I
Yeah,
think too, there's a beautiful, understanding that we can come to, in life when we are present and when we're just sort of in the moment. We just do get gifted with beautiful
yeah,
lessons and insights. And I journaling is something that, or writing things down, I think it's so good for all of us. But my books kind of became my journal, and it's almost like
yeah,
what's happened to you too. I hear in your podcast you talk about seasons, which is lovely. They kind of just really nicely, um, put a season sometimes to
mm,
things and to where you are, because yeah, how fast is life? I mean, that's one thing with kids. It just is in your face all the time. My gosh, when did this happen? When did the my oldest is 22. I mean, how on earth did that happen? I was
Yeah.
thinking, because my third book, I'm going to do one on parenting, and it's not going to be a how to, it's going to
No.
be just insights and reflections. And
Yeah.
because no one needs to be told, I believe anyway, how
There's
to
enough of
parent.
those out there.
Yes, and I would never put my hand up to do that, except to say that you know how to do it. That's my thing, is always empowering,
Mm,
the reader to listen to their heart and to trust
yeah.
themselves. But,
Beautiful.
I remember like it was yesterday,
Mm,
sitting on the couch. I was 8 months pregnant with my son. And it actually, for the first time, occurred to me that that thing in my stomach, I had to get it out. And I actually had a panic attack. And I don't have
mm,
panic attacks. And I really actually don't really remember if I've ever had another one since. But I'm like, I've got to get this thing out. And then I actually have to keep it alive. Like, I know it, I mean, I was very bonded with my son, but it was like,
yeah.
it's me. I have to keep this child alive. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever, I mean, that truth and that responsibility, I mean, I've taken
Mm,
that so seriously, above everything I do, the
yeah.
parenting aspect of it. But anyway, just was throwing that in there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
beautiful.
always learning,
Mm,
and I can't wait to have a look at your book. But I want to bring
mm,
it round to your podcast, because there was a couple of things I
okay.
wanted to talk to you about and just get your
Sure.
insights on. The one I listened
Mhm.
to was actually the latest one.
Mm.
And you and your, sorry, what's your
Kath.
co-host? Kath.
Kath. Yeah.
So she's from South Africa. She's got a South
Yes, she
African.
is, and
Yes.
lived in Queensland for quite some time, has since moved to South Australia. So we're a
Oh,
long distance friendship now. She moved last year. So yeah.
lovely, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lovely conversation, and there was a few things I took from it. And it was really talking about this intricate balance between
Mm,
self-care and being selfish. And
mm,
really resonated with it, because I've cut, like everything, it's grey in shades, and there's no black and white, and there's no rules, and we can't say,
mm,
hey, this is selfish and this is self-care. And, we do know there's a lot of conditioning around, putting ourselves last, and not taking the time for ourselves. But I
yeah.
really wanted to share an insight that I had while I was listening to it, and to get your
Okay, sure.
perspective on it. Just thinking about selfish, I was thinking about how actually is selfish not you taking responsibility for what is yours, instead of expecting others to give you
Someone
the things
else.
that are really yours. And I don't
Mm.
think that's a true definition, but what do you think about that?
As in the definition for selfish.
Yeah, yeah. Because so I haven't probably explained that quite well, but
Mm,
it's to me, selfish, we think of selfish as putting ourselves first. And of course, the
mm,
conversation was around, well, where do we find that balance with really doing for others? And
mm.
obviously that, developing that passion that we
Yeah.
have in life to give back. And
Yeah.
that's a really important part of it too. And I think sometimes we have to sort of close that down a little bit while we are doing the healing journey
Mhm.
within. And then it's
Mm.
like the flower, we do open up and we give a lot back when
Yeah.
we've got to that place
Something
ourselves.
to give. Yeah.
Yes. But I think sometimes we get stuck in thinking that, it's everybody else's job to give
Mm.
us in life things.
Mm. Mm.
And I know it does not sound like that's selfish, and it's a innocent misunderstanding. But I
Mm.
think, when we truly understand that it is our responsibility, then
100%.
perhaps the balance of what's selfish and not just sort of,
Yeah, that makes
so
sense. It kind of it's clear then. Is
yes.
that what you
And that's
mean?
what
Like
we
there's
need.
clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when there's lack of clarity,
Yeah.
then there's confusion, and then we
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I think no matter where we find ourselves in our world, in the seasons, in life, 100% we are solely responsible to move ourselves forward. And it's nobody else's. We can't wait for anybody or anything to happen. It has to be this, which is why I guess I call my coaching Be Brave, Be Strong. Because in order to do this work and to take ownership, you have to summon the courage to be brave and do the work, whether or not it feels like, whether or not it's really your fault. Because sometimes, look, life, there's some pretty tough stuff that people have to go through and find themselves in situations that's not been their own doing. And certainly not saying that. However, it's still our own responsibility to find our way, to get ourselves out of that and to live a life where we're not a victim, that we are responsible. And it would be highly selfish of us to expect that everybody else to come and rescue us, which is what we see happen around us today all of the time. And it's easy. I mean, I'm in that camp sometimes as well myself. You find yourself in a spot and you want someone to come and fix it and help you and all of those things. And we are part of a community, and there are roles at times where people do come and help us. But ultimately, we are really responsible for ourselves.
Yeah. What I loved, I think, a couple of times in that podcast, it was that when that voice kind of says, well, what about me? And it really struck me when you were talking about that, because I think it might have been you sort of said, it's kind of an invitation. Well, what about you? You matter. We all matter.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes other things take priority, particularly if you're a mum, right? I've always used the example, my daughter walks through the door and she's heartbroken because she's, but I was supposed to go and watch a sunrise. I don't know, I would drop everything,
Of course you would.
and you embrace that. You don't, resent that, because that's the part of the season that you're in, and that's your job at the moment.
Yeah.
So it was a lovely conversation. I encourage the listeners here to go and to look it up. I'll definitely have a link to your podcast, because I just think they're beautiful conversations. Just anything that gets you just thinking, and looking at things perhaps through different eyes is beautiful, because we all deserve to be here. And a big part of my work is helping people reconnect back to that inner essence. And I think that essence of who we are is the forefront of how we live, how we choose us, how we treat ourselves, how we treat others. Like, selfish doesn't even come into,
No.
it's not in my vocabulary
anymore. No.
No.
I agreed. No. And I love your example before, if your daughter comes in. So I was thinking about that today, actually. My daughter's thing is she'll come in and say, hey, Mum, do you want to do the hill, which is walking Castle Hill? Now, sometimes she says that, and that's the last thing I want to do. But when my daughter says, Mum, do you want to do the hill? I know it's because she wants to walk beside me and there's something on her heart. So it would be, if I was to be selfish, it would be to say, oh, no, sorry, Abby, I'm tired today. But because I'm putting her needs first, and because that's my job at the moment, I love what you said. That's part of my responsibility at the moment. I will say yes every time to walking that hill.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to, but I put it, sure, Abby, I'd love to walk the hill. Yeah.
For kids, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
I had a few other questions here, but purpose. You seem to have a really incredibly rich grasp on what your purpose is and sense of purpose. And I think sometimes it's hard to find out what our purpose is. I mean, we touched on it a little bit at the start, in terms of getting into coaching, but I think purpose is more than just your job. What do you think?
Hands down, purpose. So I love to think of it. I wish, I'm not a details person, so I can't tell you all of the thoughts.
Oh my God.
But I remember in my coaching training, there was this triangle, and it had purpose at the very top, and underneath it, it had the roles we play, the daily actions. Can't tell you anything else at this moment that was on there, but it's like the overarching, the top, it's who we are. So I guess I see purposes as who we are as people, like how I show up. And that can be in the role of mum, it could be the role of wife, it can be the role as a coach or a teacher, it can be a role as friend, a daughter. And then so my purpose then is, what do I value? Who do I want to be? And that's my purpose. So I guess that I love, that's so kind of you to say that I have a sense of purpose, because sometimes I'm wondering, where am I going? What am I doing? But I guess what's clear to me is maybe not so much the roles. Sometimes they can become, or some of the daily tasks can be a little bit jumbled, but I'm always clear of who I want to be.
Yeah, I love
Mm.
it. I love it.
Mm.
And that can only come with clarity of like you said, like being, or I use the word being the owner of our life. So taking responsibility, knowing
Responsibility.
that we're the ones navigating it.
Yeah.
And knowing that in any situation that we're in, we have our core values of who
Mm.
we are to guide us. And it's, like you said at the start, there's never anything we can do in life to guarantee we won't feel pain, or we won't feel, tragedy, or we won't feel, that be in situations where life looks like it's just pummeling us,
Mm.
over and over. But
Mm.
when we know who we are and what we
Mm.
value, that's our anchor. And it's
Mm.
like, I didn't know that. I didn't even know that
No,
existed till I was like 45.
I know. Again, wouldn't it have been nice to
Yeah,
know?
wouldn't it?
Oh,
Wouldn't
but
it?
I mean, we can share that now, right? I recently was having a coaching conversation with a young fella, and he was sort of thinking his purpose was in the career. He finished year 12 last year and he was trying to navigate it. And so it was so freeing for him to go, oh, what I do isn't my purpose. It's who I am. Wow. And so he was able to then take action towards giving stuff a shot because he had so much weight on the decisions he was trying to make for his career. He just put so much weight on it. And what happens if I fail at it? And and when he realized, oh, it's not about that, it's pretty powerful. Hey.
And actually, for everybody listening,
Mm.
I just think that's such a common misunderstanding, that when we can see it from that perspective, that it is about who we are and the rest of it is secondary. It's like, it's almost like we get it backwards.
Yeah.
It's almost like we get
We
it
absolutely
backwards.
do.
And when we write it, then life just happens as it does, and we get to take our hands off the wheel a little bit and enjoy the ride a little bit more, than
Oh,
rather than
yeah.
thinking, yeah, that it's all on us, because actually probably very little of it is, except
Absolutely.
the way we react to it and the way we show up to it. And I
Yeah.
love that. Love, love, love. There's so much about this conversation I've loved, but we're going to start to wrap
Mm.
it up.
Sure.
Any questions that you have for Alison while she's here? I know there'll be so many just resonating, with you. I so thrilled that we were able to connect. I just, oh, I love it. I love what you do. I love the
Mm.
gifts that
Thank you.
you've seen and what you share. I cannot wait to read your book. But
Yeah. Thank you.
what's happening in the future for Alison? Like, where are you just really just embracing the present moment as much as you can? Are there some plans or some dreams for you?
Mm. For me, they're big questions. I've got lots of projects on the go.
Okay.
Um, things that have been on my heart for a while. I didn't ever think I'd be an author, but there's kids' books on the horizon, and perhaps parenting type things about loving my kids, what that looks like. Um, in with business with Kath and the podcast, and sort of dreaming about what that can look like and how that can grow. And so we're looking at a membership and what that can look like. So that's been exciting. But I think for me as Alison, I think I'm very much in this season, kind of camped in the season for a bit. It's been a lot of looking forward and actually not having the time to do the things that have been on my heart for a long time to do. So I feel like that's where I'm at personally, being in the present and doing all of those little things that being a teacher and being a mum with lots of little children and life being so busy, I just haven't been able to do. So I don't know if that's answered the question. There's lots of little things happening, but mostly it's sort of unpacking, okay, well, what's really been in my heart to do? I think now's the time to start doing it and not put it off anymore. Mm.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Mm.
Well, I can't wait to watch it all and just share and
Thank
just
you.
learn from you. Final
Mm.
final question is just really, just some words of wisdom. Just just something. I always ask people, what is something that they'd like to just as a parting gift be able to give to anyone listening.
Um, I'd say, wow, there's a lot to be said about grace for yourself and grace for others. Life's really hard, and I think, and it's easy at times too. But it can be really, really easy to just get caught up in it all and be hard on ourselves and hard on people around us and try and sort everything out and get to the bottom of everything. Whereas I think we could have a lot more grace for ourselves and a lot more compassion for ourselves and for those around us. I know I've been hard on myself for most of my life, taken on and said things to myself. My thoughts, my goodness, I've had to work hard on my thoughts. And so
Don't we
grace,
all?
I would say, grace for ourselves, to love ourselves and to love those around us.
Well, I'm just going to share this comment from Pascal. So I think that she's probably going to be speaking for most of the people watching live, and certainly the many that will watch the recording too. I think you really have just, I love just hearing similar messages, but said in a different individual way. I mean, it does. It's almost like we're looking at the same thing, but then all of a sudden we see a color or a shade
Yeah,
or a nuance to it. And I think that is actually what will keep happening if we allow that to happen for the rest of our life. And that
yeah,
keeps it
agreed.
fun and interesting and exciting. And I'm thrilled. I just have loved this conversation. I can't
Yeah,
thank
me
you
too.
enough for
Thanks for asking.
agreeing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll have to do it again someday.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
no, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you hopefully stay in the Thrive Time group so we can stay connected for as long as you need, and
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's a
I'm
beautiful
really thrilled.
space. You've got
Well,
a
when you were
beautiful space.
talking about space, I was really resonating with, I guess I had to get over a lot of my own insecurities to kind of
Mm,
I've got two, I guess, spaces, and one's my Art of
mm,
Thriving, which is more on WhatsApp, but we meet twice a week, although not at the moment because it's wrapping up and I'm doing the circadian stuff, but it's really a longer term
mm.
group for people really ready to do the work, or
Yeah.
there's a long journey, and I've had people in there for 4 years, and
Yeah.
they stay
Beautiful.
really not because they're lacking or they think they
Mm.
are not where they need to be, because I really help people to see that they're actually where they're meant to be.
Yeah.
Can't be anywhere else anyway. But the curiosity of
Yeah.
this shades, like I just said, of
Yeah.
being able to see things with different colors, and
Yeah.
that keeps them coming. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, we're really, really nervous to sort of start the groups, and I wasn't sure if it would work,
Mhm.
but I see the power of it. And then Thrive Time was just much more of a daily kind of, just get to know me, let's connect, and if you need something deeper, then when Art of
Mm.
Thriving opens, you can step into that. But there's just not enough, particularly on social media. I think, in community and connection, sometimes we're not in the same room, we're rarely in the
Mm.
same room, but we can still feel connected and safe,
Yeah.
and learn about life and who we are in
Yeah.
those places
And
and spaces.
we never learn the lesson just one time and then think we've got it for the rest of our life. So we can learn the same thing over and over and over again and learn something new every time, which is fabulous. But yeah,
It
there's something
is.
about connection, right? Community and connection, and I love community. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
me too, me
beautiful.
too. Thanks, Alison, and thanks for
Pleasure.
those that showed up live and got
Yeah, thank you.
involved. It always makes it more fun.
Mm.
And I'll be back again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.